Hello, and welcome to Art of Retirement, where we focus on the artful uniqueness of your retirement experience. If you're new here, I am Art. In my last video, I walked you through the three buckets of my personal bucket strategy, but what I didn't talk about was the simple method I use to track these investments to make sure all is well, and whether or not I can increase my spending or if I should throttle back a little bit. That is what I'll be talking about today. But first, let me bring up the old Etch-a-Sketch for a quick review. So the four key points from my previous bucket strategy video are: number one, in my everyday bucket, my wife and my Social Security covers all of our fixed living expenses. Point number two was in my cushion bucket. My investments are in fixed rate of return CDs, so if money is needed beyond what my emergency fund can provide, and if the stock market is down when I need that money, I can avoid pulling from my growth bucket by accessing those funds. And then point number three is in my growth bucket, I have mostly date-targeted conservative investments that, to some extent, are automatically self-balancing. And then finally, number four, since my everyday bucket covers all my daily expenses, my cushion bucket and my growth bucket are totally intended for discretionary spending, and I do not have to touch them except under some extreme circumstances. So, how do I track my finances? First, I don't use any software like Bolden to monitor my finances. Don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that type of software, and I can definitely see why some people would benefit from it, like if you're required to make distributions from your cushion or growth buckets to meet your fixed expenses. But since I'm not in that situation, it's not particularly useful for me. Also, my having a withdrawal strategy per se is not needed. I just pull money from my investments whenever I want to purchase something beyond my daily needs. And that money either comes from my cushion if the stock market is down, or it comes from my Roth account if not. Now, I know most advisors say your Roth account is probably the last place you should pull from, since money's growing there tax-free. At the moment, however, I'm purposely filling my tax bracket with Roth conversions in a push to significantly reduce my pre-tax IRA holdings. So if I do need to pull money for some reason, I don't want to pay taxes on it at the next higher tax rate. Since we're talking about saving on taxes, here's a bonus tip. Since I'll be turning 70 and a half soon, I can start taking advantage of qualified charitable contributions, which will also help me to empty that pre-tax accounts since those transactions are tax-free. Now, putting taxes aside for the moment, the bottom line here is the only thing I track are the balances in my cushion and growth buckets. Here's an example of the spreadsheet I use. I do this monthly, and it usually only takes about a half hour each month. As you can see, I track the totals of the pre-tax, post-tax, and Roth IRA investments that are in my growth bucket. I also track my cash-based CDs that are in my cushion bucket, though they don't really change from month to month. But those values are used in my cushion versus growth calculations at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And the blue change column on the far right lets me know how that class of investment has performed since the end of the previous year. Now, unless I see something strange happening, I don't really do anything with these numbers. It just gives me a consolidated context relative to growth or loss, which then tells me whether or not I can afford to take that next big trip. Well, that wraps up this video. If this information has been helpful, please click the like button. Also, if you would like to benefit from future videos, please subscribe. Originally, my goal was to reach 1,000 subscribers. Now, I would just be happy to reach double digits. Also, please leave a comment below if you have any thoughts or questions on what I presented today. And as always, remember, there is art in every retirement. Be blessed.